Hi guys, this is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet to do so. And if you get anything from my work at Connect, an Epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of this video. And if you would like some artwork, got paintings, pyramids, whole skulls with gems and copper inside, business card holders, get your card in there. I got these plain ones. I'm making different colors. So if you're interested in any of that, please go to my website, alleycatcreations211.com. It's a portfolio. Email me if you're interested in anything. The message of Aquaria. The law of sacrifice. We'll see what this has, but so far they have yet to disappoint me in any of the books that they have written back in the day. So let's begin. Quote, present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. End quote. Romans. All religious teachings are based upon the law of sacrifice. And since all religions spring from the same source, are given to humanity by spiritual teachers of the race, the law of sacrifice must be a principle of divine manifestation. It is a law of the descent of spirit into matter. Form involves limitation, and all limitation involves sacrifice. As the creative ray is sent forth into manifestation from the divine, something of its divinity, purity, and power is of necessity sacrificed by the limitations of every successive form through which it expresses, from the ideal thought forms in the universal mind down through their manifestations in ethereal substance until they reach their densest expression in physical matter. Each step of the descent is a sacrifice of a higher state of consciousness that a lower form may manifest. God sends forth his Son that all forms may have their life or expression. Quote, I am come that they have may life. Wait, I totally fucked that up. Scratch that. Quote, I am come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly, end quote. Heavenly man sacrifices himself that the daytime of the universe may be brought forth. I'm going to put a pause here. Sorry, my brain's all wonky doodle. So anybody who ever claims that there's fallen angels, we all fell, as they just said. We fell into matter. We came from the light of source, the pool of liquid gold, whatever you want to call source, the energy thereof, in the existence of the breath that it took, that created the frequency and vibratory states to bring us into different densities, dimensions, parallels, matrices, whatever you want to call all of that. We fell into materialism because, yeah, we fell into our bodies. We descended down into and de-intensified ourselves because we're infinite. We came in like a funnel into this body, your body, into the animals, into the insects, into the rocks, into the ground. We densified ourselves. We all fell. So get past the good and evil shit. Get past the biblical shit. They're telling you, but get past the religiosity of it all. Physics and science, we fell into density into matter, physical form. We fell. In nature, we see an illustration of this phase of sacrifice when the sun pours forth, or sacrifices, its light and heat and life force, that the day period of year, the summertime, may manifest, evolve, and bring to fruitage all the myriad forms or expressions of the one life. This is the sacrifice of the descent, of involution, the conscious sacrifice of the greater that the lesser may evolve. The sacrifice of the ascent or evolution must follow the same law, but in reverse order, until the higher stages are reached without a full comprehension of the workings of the law. Thus, we find the rocks crumbling under the influence of the elements, frost, erosion, and being washed down the mountains to form the rich alluvial soil of the plains. The mineral thus sacrifices its form of the one life to a greater, is killed and eaten, that a higher form of life, the vegetable, may evolve. The vegetable sacrifices its form. It's killed and eaten, and its life forces absorbed, that still a higher and less limiting form of life, the animal, may evolve. The animal, in turn, gives up its form of life, that man may express the one life in still greater fullness and perfection. In each case, all that is eaten loses its form, and all its particles and forces are extracted and raised to a higher rate of vibration and built into the higher form, each element being absorbed by those parts of the body or those tissues which need it. The waste and the broken down tissues eliminated by the higher forms of life pass into the air, water, and soil, and from them are again absorbed by the lower forms of life and start out on a new cycle of evolution, carrying with them the impress of the higher vibrations received while in the higher form. In a similar way, the waste thrown off the previous chain of globes, the moon chain, composed the chaotic materials from which our present earth chain was formed. And we in turn are today throwing off materials which will be used to fashion the future, globe chain, on which we must redeem those materials, for nothing which has ever belonged to man but must be redeemed by him. The lower personal man also ultimately sacrifices his life, that the divine man within may be enabled to rise above the limitations of the flesh and manifest the perfection of man's oneness with his Father in heaven, thus completing the threefold cycle of unfoldment, expression, sacrifice at one-ment, of outbreathing, manifestation, and inbreathing. Until evolution had developed man, all seemed automatically to follow the law of evolution. But as the force are focused in man, he must learn to guide and rule them, for the Lord God literally brings to man, as the allegory of Adam so plainly shows, all things to be named. Note well the wording. Out of the ground the Lord formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he could call them. Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree. To you it shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life. I have given every green herb for meat. And God saw something that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Hence, man contains in his physical body the materials and life forces from all the lower kingdoms. Also, during its intrauterine life, the human fetus passes through the characteristic forms of the lower kingdoms and embodies the sum total of all those life forces. Hence, in his body, man has fulfilled the allegory of Genesis in one aspect, for in this form he has all the kingdoms brought to him to be named. This is a most significant fact, for a name in occult parlance means a word which exactly describes the meaning and function of the thing named. Hence the significance of the text. Quote, I know my own sheep by name, end quote. The Bible, to a very degree, uses names in this way. The names given to the biblical characters, such as Noah, for instance, quote, furnish in the very names the records of the causes and effects which lead to the event, end quote. The biblical deluge and all the stories of the deluge and other records are connected with the name of the same significance as Noah. Therefore, to interpret through the science of logography, the story of the naming of the animals means that the man must take all the materials and animal forces to be found in his body, recognize and understand them, and gather up their true essence of life and build it into his higher soul life. Herein lies one of the greatest mysteries of life, for not only is man dominion over all these kingdoms, but he assumes his dominion only as he names, recognizes, controls, and gives them their true place in the garden or uplifts them in his own organism. Hence the Hermetic axiom, man, know thyself, is carved over the entrance of every gate along the path of life. We who are studying life and the healing of the body from the more advanced standpoint know well that whatsoever we call of name anything that we find in our body, so it is. If we say we are hopelessly ill or are a worm of the dust or destined to be poor or desolate, so are we. For we have misnamed the substances that God has brought to us for our harmonious manifestation, and we must express the results of our misnaming. Therefore, we must have the same things brought to us life after life and literally built into our bodies until we awaken to our duty and realize that they have been brought to us by the Lord God, law of our good, to be named as they are. Pause right there. This is why when you see memes saying your thoughts become things, and that there's spell casting, your words or spells, is because your thoughts in your head are manifesting your reality. So law of attraction, if you're putting out negative words, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, in a negative sense, you're drawing that energy to you, and you're going to perpetually be in that victimhood. Whereas I draw health, I draw to me success, abundance, prosperity. I am worthy of all these things. You're reversing the spell. You're attracting those things to you because you have an energy field, you have a magnetic field, you have a toroidal field. It's not just a spiritual person telling you this. There's actually science behind this. The intricacies that people aren't seeing, that some of us can, there are so many waves of energy that we can't perceive with these two very eyes, but yet still exist and coming off of us. So when you change your mindset, and yeah, shit's going to happen to you. You signed a contract with Source to have an experience, to play a character, to play a role. So certain things will happen that are not of your best benefit, but they're lessons and things to take away from. So when you can actually stop and change your reaction to what is being thrown at you. Okay, so this wasn't feeling great. So how can we change this to make it feel better? Doesn't need to be pumpkin pie and glitter. It needs to be practical. So whatever it is that you're facing and challenges that are coming into your life, change the way you're thinking about it, change the way you're projecting your words about it, because that you are creating your world. And when you put out positive energy, you're getting positive energy back. When you're putting negative energy out, And yeah, shit happens out of our control. This is life. The mastery that we are all under and that we have to partake in order to have higher awareness is to change your reactions to it all. That means inner thoughts, outer thoughts, what we give names to, all of this matters. So choose wisely and things will get better if you're in that place. In ancient times, when a place of worship was to be established, a more or less conscious recognition of the law of sacrifice was made. For the first stone to be laid was the stone of sacrifice. Around this, at some distance, walls were etched, and later a temple was built over it. And around the temple, a center of civilization gathered. The laying of a cornerstone is a modification of this same idea. This law is also illustrated in the ceremonies of initiation into the mysteries, during which the neophyte must sacrifice a lower, personal man, must allow to be dead and buried, ere the resurrection into the higher spiritual consciousness can take place. Among the ancient Druids, a priest cast himself with the arms outstretched in the form of a cross upon the stone of sacrifice as a propitiation for the sins of the multitude, a symbol of the sacrifice of the lower personal man to the divine man. Also, when Sibyl, or high priestess of the temple, was to be consulted, she stretched herself upon the stone of sacrifice in the presence of the priests in the same posture as a symbol that she had completely sacrificed her own personality and gave herself up as an oracle of the God who spoke through her. Pause. So we're all doing this exactly right now. This seems very fanciful and scary to some people, but it's the ego death. You're giving your old self, the old you, your old reactions, your old ways of thinking, you're letting them die. You're casting them out. You're releasing them. That's a form of sacrifice because you're emerging into a higher ended conscious being. You're getting rid of your fear. You're getting rid of your ego. And that you still need your ego, but the old self, that old way of thinking, the old projections coming out of you, that old sense of self is leaving. It's going bye-bye. I don't need you anymore because I'm not that person anymore. I'm moving forward. I'm improving. I'm maturing. I'm aware of higher consciousness and the ways that I now need to start thinking. So this old sense of self is dying. It's going bye. That's all it's meaning. At the end of the day, how it applies to each and every one of us. That's a sacrifice because a lot of people aren't willing to make changes inside of themselves, in their thinking, in the ways of their doing each and every day to move forward. Lifestyle change, if you do little increments at a time and you do little bits and chip away for months, years, the changes are going to occur and better things are going to fall into your lap. But they can't do that if you're not willing to have that death. That's all that means. These ceremonies, like all others, when the inner symbolic meaning is lost, became materialized and degraded into the sacrifice of human victims upon an altar of stone. This is held against the Druids to this day as a proof of their barbarism. Although at one time they were the most learned, refined, and cultured of all the people of Europe. And well may we expect in ages to come that scientists who unearth statues of a crucified Jesus will accuse modern Christians of being savages who believed in a literal blood sacrifice. Truth. The stone of sacrifice must be symbolically formed and voluntarily laid by the neophyte in the Holy of Holies of his life and must be able to withstand the fires built upon it. The stones which go into its making, the imperfections and hard faults of the personality, must be grounded to power powder to form the cement from which it is made. Every stone of stumbling in the personality, every hard, unyielding, selfish trait in the lower man must be placed beneath the milestones of the law and ground to dust, and then by the power of divine love transmuted into the stone of sacrifice. Some, alas, find that the law of sacrifice grinds too fine. Their stones have been carved into talismans to cherish or into idols to be worshipped, and they cannot give them up. They cannot stand still and allow the law to grind from them all that holds them back. It is any wonder, then, that the foundation of the spiritual life requires a stone of sacrifice. Every grain composing it represents a living sacrifice, something of the lower self given up, sacrificed, overcome, that its essence may be transmuted into spiritual growth. This was symbolized among the ancients by the sacrifice of animals and the fruits of the earth. Therefore, we must plant our feet firmly upon the stone of sacrifice and realize that through every sacrifice, the divine life force is released from selfish and personal, perhaps perverted manifestations, and is poured out that our understanding may be illumined and our growth promoted. Everything I just said. One of the treasure of the ocean is coral, which by its formation illustrates the law of sacrifice. The coral reefs are built up literally by the life sacrifice of the polyps, which compose them. Each generation lays down its life and deposits its limestone skeleton as a foundation upon which the next generation can build. To the countless millions of tiny creatures in each generation, the sacrifice of their lives might be seen a little moment useless, yet without them, the protecting reefs and the beautiful atolls and islands of the sea could never rise. Comparing humanity to the ocean, coral aptly illustrates the law of sacrifice in humanity, the apparently useless sacrifice of countless millions of human lives, which seemingly for no reason, for no purpose, has nevertheless laid the foundation upon which humanity is slowly rising above the waves of adversity into a more perfect manifestation. It is not alone the sacrifice of those who have willingly given up their lives in war or for the advancement of science, or that they may be teachers and leaders, but also the unknown lives that are laid down in ignorance, ceaseless toil, poverty, and despair, the great mass of common people who seem born but to toil, suffer, sacrifice, and pass away, leaving no trace, no memory. Yet woe to the individual or the societal, social, political, or industrial system which demands such sacrifices, for such are stones of stumbling, which the great law will grind to powder. Not one shackled or industrial slave who has given up his life to minister to the selflessness, greed, or self-indulgence of his masters, but is noted by the great law and marked for suitable compensation in some future incarnation, since not one sparrow falleth to the ground without the Father's notice, so not one of those obscure sacrifices is valueless or forgotten. If we could look down upon humanity from the spiritual heights, as we look upon the coral in the ocean's depths, we would see that the sacrifice of all those obscure, unknown lives has built up in humanity a great structure, has brought about conditions upon which a new humanity, the reincarnation of those who thus sacrifice, can take up more advanced evolution because of the lessons learned through sacrifice, just as the islands built up by the coral polyps support a new and luxuriant form of vegetation. Even the coral polyps evolve and change the character of their formation as the reef rises to the surface. The surface and sacrifice of mankind has thus built up a great and beautiful island in the sea of humanity, a fit foundation upon which the New Jerusalem, with its temple of the living Christ, shall be built. Those who today are ready and desirous of taking up the work of erecting this great temple of helping humanity, or providing a home or a center in which the coming avatar may manifest, and where humanity may find shelter, instruction, and love, must remember that it is not they alone who can make this possible. Think of those who have suffered martyrdom, who have been ridiculed, reviled, persecuted, and crucified for their efforts to express truth as revealed to them, for their efforts to bring enlightenment to humanity. Think of the millions and millions of humble toilers who have laid down their lives without the vision, without hope. These have formed stratum after stratum of the coral rock of truth, truly a foundation of sacrifice. It matters little whether the sacrifice be a physical life, as in former ages, or today in the mental world. The sacrifice is but on a higher step of evolution. Each life of sacrifice has left behind its grain of truth to make up the foundation upon which we are today erecting the temple of humanity. To us is given the great privilege of becoming active factors in the work of erecting the walls of the temple upon foundation, which has now risen above the waves. We need no longer labor in the depths, but we can now lay stone upon stone above the sacrifice in the light, with the knowledge that each is being laid according to the grand plan. This is equally true in the life of every individual, for each soul must erect the temple of the living Christ in his or her own heart and life. But he must first lay its foundation beneath the surface, within the turbulent depths of his lower nature, and through sacrifice gain the wisdom to lift it up, and step by step into the glorious light of the spiritual sun, his immortal oneness with the divine. The ocean's depths contain many jewels. Each has its meaning and symbology and represents a force at work both in nature and in humanity. While coral stands for self-sacrifice and devotion, the pearl stands for accumulated wisdom. Hence, it is not enough merely to sacrifice. We must sacrifice wisely. We must gather our pearls of wisdom and with them beautify the structure which we are erecting. The pearl is primarily but a grain of sand around which is gathered layer after layer of material poured out by the oyster, which is giving its life force to transmute the grain of sand into the pearl. So wisdom overlays the common experience of life until they are transmuted into pearls of great price. Let each soul take the little grains of experience in his or her nature, learn the lessons from them, and build around the layer after layer of love and devotion until they become pearls of wisdom. Pearl can be made into a useful talisman, provided we let our consciousness correlate with its forces. For each jewel contains a living force, which has entered into its formation, and which it can impart to man if he but correlated with it. But no talisman should be used as a fetish. Coral should awaken in our minds and hearts a sense of oneness with all who have gone before, with all who toil and sacrifice. It should make us realize that even though we may be but the humblest of human creatures, still we have our lives to live, our places to fill, our records to make, and our grains of truth to leave behind. Even though the waves beat fiercely upon us, take courage, for it is in the most turbulent seas that the coral takes upon itself the greatest perfection of form and beauty of color. Coral should also awaken in us a sense of our responsibility, the responsibility for the right use of the wonderful opportunities to help humanity offered us today. But we ever so humble, it is not that we are to think of ourselves as a greater, higher, better than those who toil beneath the waves, who blindly sacrifice that we might emerge into the light of divine wisdom. But that we may realize that because we are in the light, because we can see the grand plan, we are responsible for building more intelligently and more perfectly. Many today are still looking at truth as a lamp of ancient design, shielding a great light held aloft by some ancient patriarch. Such a conception was a true and fitting one during the period when the foundation of the mighty temple of truth were forming beneath the waves, when the light of truth could manifest only as a lamp fed by the oil of midnight, conclave and secret vigil, and carefully guarded from the cold blasts of ignorance and storms of prejudice, criticism, and persecution. But as the foundation rises above the sea, many such persons are seeing their old conceptions overturned and sacrificed by the advance of the present day, until in sadness, those who are still looking backward into the past for their authority for truth find their hands empty and their hearts hungry, and they cry out bitterly at the death of their old ideas. But if they open their eyes, they will find that it is not the light of truth that has been taken from them, only a past incarnation of half-truths, which have had their day and laid down their lives as a sacrifice, that upon them may be built the structure of a greater conception. Today we see, instead of an old oil-fed lamp, the sun of a new age, flooding the world with a new and mystical light. Instead of an ancient patriarch or initiate holding high his individual lamp, we see God himself now lets the glory of his continent shine for all who will to behold it. In fact, the outpouring of the light of truth to man has kept pace with the development of artificial light. In the first place, a rush light above, a secret shrine, then a candle in the home, then oil lamps, gas, carbon electric lights, Mazda lights, and the enclosed electric arc. And so will it ever continue until there shall be no more darkness in the minds of man. For the Lord God giveth them light. For that which transpires in the development of evolution of man is always paralleled and symbolized by inventions and advances in the outer conditions of the world and humanity. The foundation of the great temple is laid in the heart's blood of humanity. It is red like coral, symbolizing love and sacrifice. It is white like coral, symbolizing purity and truth. And it is also red like coral, symbolizing the blood of the heart poured out in sacrifice. It is remarkable that the bright, vivid red coral, at one time so greatly prized, has now become practically exhausted, being found only upon certain parts of the African coasts, while the coral of commerce is now the beautiful pink coral. Red raised in vibration to pink is a lowered red lightened by the white of the one life and transmuted into pink, which symbolizes purified love. But coral is not a mere symbol. It contains an actual living force, the same force which gives the coral polyp the instinct to build a structure that is beautiful, in the same force that has sustained the masses of humanity through their ages of sacrifice. The same force which has sustained the pupils of this order in the sacrifices which have advanced the work of this order to the position it occupies in the world today. For with few exceptions, its teachings are now sent to nearly every country and people in the world, and its foundation emerge from the waters of adversity. The same force will sustain in the sacrifices which are necessarily to enable the walls to rise and establish upon the earth plane a center commensurate with the greatness of its mission. As the time approaches when, according the cyclic law, such a center must be established, a quiet lagoon wherein love and peace reign, The cry goes forth more powerfully for an awakening to the great opportunities now before us, of putting into concrete form the ideals presented by the teaching of the order. To accomplish this, there must be established a place of refuge and retreat where, out of every center now established upon earth, there must be gathered these souls who have proved faithful, loving, and devoted, whether of this order or not, that they may come into personal touch with the elder brothers of humanity, the coral reef which holds back the waves of evil that would engulf the race, and be trained to become the teachers of mankind and form a nucleus for the coming sub-race, each in his appointed place. Nothing worth having can be obtained without sacrifice. If this be true of the lesser things of life, how much more true is it of the greater, and especially of the spiritual teachings now being given to humanity through this order? But the more love and wisdom with which the sacrifice is made, the greater will be its accomplishments. These teachings come freely to those who are ready for them, but their real inner force cannot enter in, but be digested and bring forth in their lives the fruits of the Spirit until they have sacrificed something for them, be it their time, thought, love, wealth, whatever they have to give, that they may be erected in humanity the great temple of truth, into which the hungry, the discouraged, and those who lack an understanding of the law may be drawn and fed with spiritual food. The success of the movement rests not alone upon those who are giving their lives that the teachings may reach humanity, but with every loving heart who receives them. Only by cooperation and sacrifice of each and all can these great truths rise higher and higher until they become a great barrier reef round about a still lagoon or center, where no matter how much the sea of humanity may lash to fury, there will always be a safe, peaceful anchorage for all storm-tossed mariners on the ocean of experience, and into which all the weary hearts of humanity may come for refuge, and where the great ones may teach from face to face. Just to the degree that we lend our aid to build up this great reef of truth to protect humanity, just to that extent we will find our own lives encircled and protected by the power of the Spirit, and will find within our hearts and lives the greater center of love and peace, the Christ consciousness, where our wildest waves of emotion shall find peace, and our stormy thoughts shall respond to the decree of the Master. Peace, be still. What shall be your part in this great work? Wow, there's a lot there, and a lot of it I express on my channel, so go check out my spiritual soul advices, because holy hell, once again, they nailed it and knocked it out of the park. Next time we will read The Sheep and the Goats. What a read. And it's the truth. We got to make time to work on ourselves. So there's a sacrifice of time. But Allison, I'm too busy. I got grandkids. I got my kids. I got my husband. I got my this. I got my that. I got work. I got blah, blah. I did a TikTok this morning. Go check out my TikTok channel, AlleyCat211. I talked about it doesn't take that long to do little incremental things to make changes in your life. I have stickers all around my mirrors, all around my house. I am worthy. I have the courage to face this day. I am beautiful. Those little stupid things that people call stupid are not stupid. My unconscious, as I'm looking in the mirror, brushing my teeth every morning, picks up those messagings of positivity. My refrigerator has a whole crap load of affirmations, beautiful sayings that I'm very connected with, and that feeds my soul. So every time I go get a drink of water or I get a snack, or I make something out of the refrigerator, I'm always seeing those cards. Each day I'm outside grounding, making sure I touch a tree if I can't take my shoes off. These little things incorporated each and every day doesn't take more than a minute, less than that. So where's the excuses coming from? Well, I can't meditate. Not everybody can. And when you are washing your dishes, cleaning your house, doing the laundry, doing mundane things, and you reach a different state of consciousness doing those things, you are technically meditating. Are you throwing on binaural beats when you're doing your work? On the way to your job, if you're working physical outdoors or you're working out somewhere else in your house, what are you putting on the radio station? What are you talking about? There is no time. The sacrifice is changing your everyday habits and changing them to make them better. Implementing things that are going to work on yourself. That's a sacrifice. It's not about blood sacrifice and evil shit because of misinterpretations of words. What are you pumping into your life each and every day to make those changes? Write them in the comments. I know since I started, I've always done affirmations, but like I now make sure they're in my face. I make sure each day that I'm outside, that I'm grounding to nature. And if I can't get outside, it's raining or it's a little too chilly, I'm watching nature. I'm connecting with the animals outside. These little things, making sure I do that once a day is letting go of an old shit that I would have like, oh, I'm going to turn the television on and get programmed. Well, no, I'd rather look out the window and be calm. Stop making excuses for why you can't do the work on yourself. I love you all, but I know there are a few people out there that give me a lot of excuses. And there's little things that you can just make a change and we could build that coral reef together because we're here and we really need to build together unity. We're in unity consciousness. It's not a solo trip anymore. They've been saying it. Bashar says it. Law of One says it. Pamela Erlin says it. Ann Tucker says it. Dolores Cannon says it. We're all shifting there. So are you going to be a part of the coral and thrive, or are you going to just be the waste and the dust and float away? That's a choice you have to make. We're at that point. I'd rather be a part of a beautiful new existence because that's why I signed up to come back. And so have many of you. You signed up to come back, to hold the light, to hold the frequency, to be here, to win it, to be a part of the change. You came for this assignment. I get it all the time. What's my purpose? Just to be here, hold the light, be happy, enjoy your life. You're not meant to sit and that doesn't work. You still have your everyday life to live. So are you living it consciously? Are you living it in the moment? Are you feeding yourself beautiful things, beautiful words, beautiful energy? Or are you going, why did this happen to me? Why is this happening to me? Why is it happening for you? You're down on your luck, you're depressed, someone passed away, animal passed away. These things happen. It's happened in my life a whole shit ton. I celebrate life. I honor life. I'm thankful for what I have. I am grateful for what I have and for all of you. What are you seeding into this world? And how are you going to be a part of that coral? What are you sacrificing? And don't think too hard about it. It's not human sacrifice. It's the cycle of life. Watch Lion King all over again. It's a cycle. Everything needs to be in balance. So where is the imbalance in your life? Focus on it, heal it, release it, and merge into the being that you're supposed to be. This is going to take time. There's no rush either. But the more of us who let go, put faith into the universe, and start building this unity together, the faster things are going to manifest. Why not? Let's go, guys. Sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding and protection energy. Sending strength to all who need it today. Please stay safe, stay sane, be seen, be the game changer. Own it. Model it for others. There's a reason why you're here. And it's okay if you don't know just yet, but you are a game changer. You are a lighthouse. So shine that light and project it far. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Thank you, everybody, for supporting me. Blessings. Go within. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye for now.